Welcome to the second day of the Conference of Champions. Please take your seats and welcome Rick Willis.
Welcome to the second day of Conference of Champions. Now, for anyone who was in the lounge late at night, I'll try not to talk too loud into the mic for you this morning. And I didn't swing by the yoga at 7 o'clock. Did we have any takers for yoga this morning? That's what I was worried about. Okay. Well, what a great night last night, huh? Who had a good time? It was a great night. And I have to tell you, I hope you've heard it many times before, and we're not going to stop saying it, but thank you to each of you. We are so fortunate to have such a committed and impassioned and dedicated group of individuals in our corner, and we're grateful that you're here. And I think that we've got a great lineup for you again today. And so to start things off this morning, we are delighted to have identical twins Annamarie and Ginamarie Russo with us to kick off our morning, and they're going to share their incredible journey of living with arthritis. And as twins sharing the same illness, they've had multiple appearances on the Today Show, and you may have seen them on VH1's show Twinning. So we're delighted to have them here. And afterwards, we're going to have volunteer extraordinaire Steve Smith is going to share with us a little bit more about what it means to be a volunteer and how to bring the Live Yes Arthritis Network alive in your community. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Annamarie and Ginamarie Russo.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Annamarie, so I must be Ginamarie. Okay. I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was 12 years old. It started out with shooting pain in my right wrist, and it wouldn't go away. It was misdiagnosed as tendinitis and overuse of playing tennis at that age. After seeking the most relentless care from my mother, Blondie's right there, say hello. I was finally diagnosed properly with JRA. And I remember that moment thinking in my mind, wait, I'm not old. I thought this only happened to grandparents. I laid my head on my mother's lap and I thought about the one word associated with JRA, pain, which haunted me for all of my years to come. I was in agony performing the most simplest tasks, such as brushing my teeth, getting dressed in the morning. I was very grateful to have my magical right arm, my identical twin, Annamarie, by my side every step of the way.
When I first learned of my twins' diagnosis of JRA, I felt completely helpless. This was the first time living 12 years with someone that I knew nothing about, and I kept thinking to myself, she's not old, I don't understand this. I felt completely helpless because we did absolutely everything together. Growing up as best friends, I was always a little bit more athletic, and on our trips together, I would carry luggage. I would meet her before her class a few minutes earlier to help her with her books. I drove us everywhere as well. I passed my driver's test on the first try. Ginamarie here failed 6 times. Another story.
I passed on the 7th. I did.
When my bestie could no longer play on the tennis team at 12 years old, I also walked off the team as well. I didn't want to play without my best friend. And the nearest Arthritis Foundation support group in Long Island, where we grew up, was about an hour away. And when I finally got my license, I would drive us there. And it was just to sit amongst adults who have dealt with this disease for their whole life. It was really inspiring to see, especially for people like us, to see that they went on to live adventurous, fulfilling lives. It really gave me such a sense of hope. I vowed I was going to do everything to learn about this disease to help my twin.
Having my mother and my twin cheer me on, take me to multiple doctor appointments, they were taking care of me. I was lucky enough to have a support team, but this was also new to them, as it was to me, to navigate this crazy, painful journey of what is going to happen next. So through the years, I learned my physical limits. I had moments, but anything my identical twin can do, I did or I tried to do. I never let arthritis hold me back growing up. It actually pushed me further. Since I could no longer play tennis for the time being, I figured if my legs were still working for the time being, I might as well just take it all the way. So I joined track as much as I could, and I actually won a few sprints, which was nice. But throughout the remainder of my childhood, I actually was marked with a lot of pain, and I was bedridden for several months. I remember actually using a cane the first time I came out, and we were parked in handicap, and the stares and the cruel comments to us really made me understand that this was an invisible disease, that I was going to have to wake up every day, not just fight for myself to prove to the world, like, this is something that we really need to research, but also show other people that, you know, make them aware. Kids get arthritis too. So through many diet changes, countless different trials of medicines, even climate changes, living on the West Coast for a few years, I also succumbed to having silicone implants in my hand. I actually have knuckle replacements and also in my thumb. And I'm just trying hard to navigate. I'm positive, optimistic. I don't focus on what I can't do. I focus on what I can do. I love to act and travel, and all the while realizing that my twin sister, my mom, was the best support that I could have received. I refuse to let RA defeat me. I am winning this battle.
20 years after my sister's diagnosis, I received my own diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. I could never have gotten through this without Ginamarie's help. My mother and the Arthritis Foundation's help. Just to hear everyone's stories gave me such another sense of hope, and that I could really, do this and live my life. I'm stubborn by nature, so I had to learn new limits as an adult, and which is not always easy for me at all. I don't like to think I can't do something, but I can now, just in a different way. I loved going to the gym a lot. Now I just go swimming, which is a lot lower impact on my joints. It was intimidating to receive the news of RA. I just remember saying to my doctor, I don't want to go with what my sister went through. And then on the flip side of it, she really never let RA hold her back from pursuing her dreams and goals. Her dreams only grew stronger, and simultaneously so did mine. She became my motivator, and she really is to this day. Things will never be the same, but I feel like change is natural, and I really truly believe that we're all butterflies, and I'm discovering a strength I never knew I had. Ginamarie once told me when she was about 15 that inspiration is like a circle. The more you encourage someone by speaking with them, in return they encourage you. Fortunately, unfortunately, I've been through this arthritic journey with my twin, and I will always continue to be there for her and the 12-year-old that's inside of everyone I see with RA. Hearing Annamarie's diagnosis really shook me to the core, but I knew that she had shown such strength with helping me that she is going to be strong enough to handle this. Living myself with the disease for over 20 years, I knew that this is my opportunity to give back to Annamarie by guiding her during this time and sharing the wealth of knowledge and tips that I collected through the years. Annamarie will learn to navigate this adult disease now with me by your side, and that's one more thing we can share that we add to our list is our rheumatologist. I also like to highlight how crucial it is to have open communication with your doctor, to let him or her know what medicine's working for you, what's not, how it makes you feel, if you missed any doses, like I have, guilty of it, because they're there to help you, they're there to treat you, they are there for you, and you need to make sure that you're asking the questions that you want. When you know you have an appointment, maybe try jotting it down. That's what I do. It helps me. It just gives me a peace of mind. I feel like you just, to have the support of also someone being there for you, it's also important on the medical aspect as well.
I believe that Annamarie and I together are certainly a force to be reckoned with against RA. We were proud honorees at this year's Walk to Cure Arthritis, New York City. We were the first dual honorees in history to have been, and also we were featured twice. We were featured actually as the cover for Arthritis Today magazine this summer, which was a lot of fun. Because we actually had some people reach out to us through email or social media asking for tips and, medicines and diet changes. We're not doctors, but we can, do our best to answer. And also, we will be relentless speaking out against RA in hopes of encouraging and inspiring others not to sit idle, find your voice. Although I am an adult now, I am still that little girl that sympathizes with children with JRA. I wish there was more accessibility, like Live Yes support groups when I was younger. It would have eased my mother's fears a bit, if that was the case. Be proactive and don't fight this journey alone.
She's been through it all as a child, a teen, an adult living with RA now. And she's my wealth of knowledge, and I'm so grateful to have someone with truly remarkable strength and courage and bravery that's so rare to me, and I'll always look up to you. When I hear the evolution of the Live Yes Network, I imagine that that's what it's like. She was my Live Yes Network literally in my pocket. She's my personal RA concierge, as I like to call her. And I urge everyone to take good advantage of the Live Yes Network. If it's in your area, and if it's not, create it. We're here for each other. And I could not have done this without the support and knowing people who are living it with it and going on, like I said, to live adventurous lives and fulfilling lives. And we can do this together. I'm not going to be able to learn overnight with Missy here has learned for 20 years, but with the Live Yes Network, I hope to reach that a little quicker than 20 years with continued communication from my doctor, the hope for a cure, the support of the Arthritis Foundation, my mom, my twin. I really believe that I'm graciously walking to the front lines of RA, and I'm beginning my own fight with my twin by my side, as always.
I think you can find it. Thank you very much for everybody, and I want to particularly say I really enjoyed last night hearing everybody speak. We did. Yeah. And
they were just beautiful speeches.
Beautiful, and I especially loved the little girl, Beatty is her name. She said everything that was on my mind was so perfectly said. I don't know where she is.
I don't know if she's in here.
I don't know if she's in here, but she literally took my thoughts as a 12-year-old and she put them into beautiful words, so well done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have fun today.
And thank you to the Arthritis Foundation.
Well, thank you, Annamarie and Ginamarie, for sharing your story and for being with us here. I now have the pleasure of introducing someone who really needs no introduction, and that, of course, is Steve Smith. Many of you know Steve and Liz, and if you don't, you would have had the opportunity to hear from his wife, Liz Smith, who was on yesterday's volunteer panel. Steve and Liz have been pillars of the volunteer leadership community in the Washington, D.C. area. They are JA parents, and Steve has for many years been active in recruiting and is passionate about building a network of volunteers to support the work of the Arthritis Foundation. And you've heard over the course of yesterday and today how important and vital and critical volunteers are to the network. And the question really is, as you heard from Ginamarie and Annamarie this morning about their passion and fighting their battle and have gone on to find their voice to turn and help the community, the question is, how can we be more effective at finding more individuals who are like that? And Steve has some words of wisdom he wants to share with us today on that front around recruiting and retaining volunteers. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? That's more than I expected, the morning after the evening of honors. It's always awe-inspiring to come up on a stage at one of these conferences following the people that have been up here before me. But I'll be honest with you, after the Three Stooges yesterday, I feel a lot more comfortable now, so it's okay. What we're going to talk about today is how volunteers power the Arthritis Foundation. And I'm going to laugh to myself because if you've seen Rick speak a couple times the last couple days talking about the Live Yes Network, he always gets to a point where when he starts to talk about volunteers, he goes, but I am the but today. And I'm going to start with a pop quiz. And if there's anybody in here that doesn't pass that, and I think my wife just probably expanded on that, but if there's anybody who doesn't pass this quiz, what do we need? What do we need to accomplish this mission? Volunteers. Quick show of hands, how many staff are in the room? How many volunteers are in the room? The good thing was that was pretty even, right? That's not the good thing. Okay? Years from now, when we come to these things, I want to see the staff hands kind of spread out and the volunteers just take over the place. Okay? How many of you have ever been involved with a volunteer-run organization? Other than the Arthritis Foundation? Okay. How many of you guys were involved in Scouts? How many ever met a professional scout? How many ever bought a Girl Scout cookie from a professional Girl Scout? From a professional Girl Scout. These organizations are run all the time by volunteers. A district in the Boy Scouts of America can be about 50 units. That can be over 2,000 scouts and volunteers. One professional scout. We can do this. We can make this happen. We can drive the Arthritis Foundation to a volunteer-led organization. But I know from listening to the presentations the last couple days and hearing people talk out by the coffee pot, and as we're walking around, they all keep saying, where do we find these volunteers? How do we get them? I've had the pleasure of being involved with volunteer organizations for a long time. And in my mind, I look at 4 things that you need to do to get volunteers. That's recruit. You got to train. You got to retain them once you've trained them. And you got to recognize them, which will keep everything else going in place. Those 4 key words, if you can keep those in mind when you're going through this process, you will be successful in how to get your volunteers that you need to make everything work. Okay, we'll start with the recruit aspect of it. Where do you find them? A lot of times you have to create them. Now, for a lot of us here, the fickle finger of fate pointed to us and said, hey, you're going to be volunteering with the Arthritis Foundation. When your kids get a disease, that's where you're going to go, okay? So for the people in this room, I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But if we're going to make this Live Yes Network work, we have to go out and find these other volunteers. So you have to do it strategically. If I stood in the middle of this room right now and said, how many people want to stick around afterwards and help clean up with all the breakfast dishes, I might get 1 or 2 hands. Okay? That's not going to work. So you have to take a strategy. You have to take a process, think it through, plan it out. And I'm ex-military, retired military, so I think of things kind of as strategic. You have to lay a plan. So you have to build a relationship with people. You have to provide them with quality time. You can't meet somebody in the parking lot while you're going into the dry cleaner while they're coming out and say, hey, by the way, I'm doing an event next week, can you help me out? Not going to work, okay? You have to know what role you want them to play, but you also have to know what role you're going to play in getting them involved with you as you do this, okay? You have to carry the message. We talk about the mission. You have to carry that mission. Because every one of us knows here, when you put on an Arthritis Walk shirt, you put on a JBR shirt, you put on just a polo like I'm wearing now, immediately by virtue of the fact that you're wearing that, you become an expert in the Arthritis Foundation. Because when you walk up to somebody and try to recruit them, they're going to start asking you questions. And they're going to look at you as a source of information. And then you always thank them, even when they say no. And that's an important reminder. I always try to tell people, we are here because we have a passion. Liz and I have 3 kids with arthritis. They're not getting rid of us. We're going to be here and work for a cure the whole time. So when I talk to somebody, I just assume that it's the most important thing in their life. But if you get 1 out of 10 people to respond positively to what you're trying to do, you've got a pretty good batting average, okay? So please keep in mind, when you go out and do this, not everybody's going to say yes. Everybody has, unfortunately, something in their family history that's going to drive them to an organization, especially like this, to volunteer, to participate. It could be a grandfather with leukemia. It could be their father died of a heart attack. But for us, it's arthritis. So Keep that in mind. Be prepared for no. Keep that in mind as you go out and do this, because there's nothing more defeating than hearing no. But if you're potentially prepared for that, I'm not saying you have to accept it, but if you're prepared for that, it's going to make doing this a lot easier. Where do we find these people? Here's the standard list of suspects I came up with, okay? All of us go that. We have organizations placed already. You have team captains, whether it was for the JBR, whether it was for the walk, whether it was for the bike thing. Every region out there has different events. But you might talk to those affected with arthritis. Obviously, friends and family, through your networks that you have, and you can even host volunteer get-togethers where you introduce them to the foundation. You want to get a list. You need to put together a list of potential volunteers, okay? The other thing you can do is work with your staff. Staff and volunteers should be working together. Put together a list of people you know. Don't go to the level of people who you think might be good volunteers. Just put together a list that you can work off of. Then set that aside. Put together a list of what you need. Okay? What events are you trying to get volunteers for? What organizational activities are you trying to get volunteers for? Put that list together. Then sit down, whether it's at a board meeting, whether it's just what I call in the military a bog sat, it's just a bunch of guys sitting around a table, okay? And then start going through the list and say, okay, what can these people do? What can these people do? And maybe you can start matching them up to where you can fill your gaps that you need, okay? You got to know your community. You got to understand what motivates people in your community. Always a sense of belonging is an important aspect of getting recruits, okay? I always look at the military community as a military brat growing up. When I went from one place to the next, as a kid I was involved in Boy Scouts. I knew what Boy Scouts did. I knew what the uniform was. I knew what the Scout Oath and the Scout Law was. It was the same everywhere. So when we moved from duty station to duty station, I can do that. As Liz and I started our journey, I was still active duty in the military. We became members of the Arthritis Foundation. We knew what it was. We knew what it meant. First thing we did when we got to a new duty station was found out who our most local Arthritis Foundation people were. That was something for us. But when you're trying to recruit somebody who's in the military that may not have arthritis, you have to understand what they might be looking at as the motivation, what their recognition is going to be. In the military, they have a medal that's called the Military Outstanding Volunteer Support Medal. Somebody who's an active volunteer for 3 years, they can earn that medal. Now, great, it's a medal. For the enlisted people, medals are points. Points are promotion. Okay, so that's one example of understanding the community and how being a volunteer can motivate somebody through their own organization to be involved in an organization. So you have to have this plan, okay? You need to understand the roles you're going to talk to somebody. Chances are the first question you're going to get from a volunteer or a potential volunteer is, what do you want me to do? You need to have that answer ready to go. Because if you ask somebody, hey, do you want to be a volunteer? And they say, sure, what do you want me to do? And you go, I'll get back to you. Probably not going to happen. How many people are familiar with the volunteer resource page on the Arthritis Walk to Cure or Walk for Cure website? Right now, you can go online, and I can't remember who it was made reference to it yesterday. They're there. These references are there. You can go online, and you can see job descriptions for all the positions on the Walk to Cure Arthritis. Okay? A volunteer resource center. Look it up. You can pull one of those out. You can print that page out. You can have it with you. If you're not comfortable going through it, you don't feel like you know it well enough, you can give it to the person. Say, here's the job description. Have an understanding of what's going to happen. Let them know what the timeline is you're looking for them to need them for, okay? Hey, we got this walk coming up in 6 months. I need you to help with this. This is what we're going to do. And this is our goal. This is what I'd like you to do. Lay out everything for them, okay? How many people have heard the old saying, it's only an hour a week? Okay? With scouts, we always said, it's only an hour a week per scout. But if you lay out the job description for them, they'll know what's going on. Let them decide. There's a big ugly word up there called empowerment. Now I'm talking to the staff, okay? When you get your volunteers in place and you give them a responsibility, and I'll go into more detail in a second, let them do their job, okay? And if you give that stuff, now you got the buy-in, now you got a volunteer that you can mold into what you need done. Empowerment. When you're talking to that volunteer who is now a volunteer, you confirm with them, this is your job. This is your responsibility. This is your role. Let us know how it's going to go. Get back to me at the next meeting. Check in with them, see what's happening. Okay? We are not a generation of envelope stuffing volunteers. When's the last time somebody stuffed an envelope anyway? I mean, it's not there. That is a position that might be necessary. But you're getting volunteers who are professionals, who are coming out to share their knowledge with you and make something happen, whether it's run an event or be a part of the event. Let them manage. Here's another ugly word I want to share with everybody. Delegation. How many of you in your jobs today, and I don't care if you're staff or volunteer, want your boss looking over your shoulder the whole time, seeing how you're doing on your job? If they didn't think you were good enough for that position, they wouldn't hire you for that position and wouldn't stand next to you the whole time and see what you're doing. Okay? So you've got to delegate. If you're a committee chair, you delegate to your sub-chairs. If you're the staff person who's the staff coordinator for a walk, you let your chairman run the event. You let them coordinate and direct. You give them the authority. You've already defined their roles. You've given them their goals. Now trust them and let them do what they need to do. Okay? Delegation is a really hard thing to do. For those in the military, we grew up with it. It's beat into us to do it. There's not a job I had in the military that I could have accomplished without our troops. Plain and simple. The job I'm in now as a defense contractor, I cannot do it myself. I venture to say there's not a person out here that can do the job they have all by themselves. There are aspects of it that are delegated, okay? You have to work together as a team, and that's one thing that's always been neat about the Arthritis Foundation, is when you're working with your staff partner, it's a team. And the staff, I'll say this right up front, probably get in trouble, you have to learn to let go a little bit. Let your volunteers do what you're using them for. Delegation, it's hard, but it can work. It's a motivator. Don't use it as an excuse. Oh, my volunteer was in charge, because then you're going to lose a volunteer, okay? It won't work well. It gives them opportunities. It gives them buy-in. The empowerment makes them feel strong. You look at the people who have been on the stage before me up here today, or for this conference, these are strong volunteers who have done wonderful things for the Arthritis Foundation. Okay? Ann has not sat at every board meeting and told them how to do their job. It's as simple as that. You're going to get an increased morale in your volunteer force if you let them do that. You're going to get thoughts, you're going to get creativity, you're going to get ideas, you're going to get more motivation. You're going to have successful events if you let them do their job, okay? And we all want to ensure a solid foundation for the future. There's going to be resistance. There's nothing harder than kind of letting go a little bit and letting somebody come in and take a responsibility that you have. Okay? They have to understand it. But if you let them have the time and make sure they know what's going on, you're going to be good. How many people in this room are perfectionists? Besides my wife, who I love dearly, and she's a okay. How hard is it to let little things go when you're putting an event together or putting anything together? It's part of what we all do, okay? So got to understand everything's not going to be perfect, but as your volunteers are going through and learning, that's what will happen. Okay, recognition. This is the fourth thing in here. We've talked about training. We've talked about all the other stuff. Recognizing your volunteers is so important to keeping them around, okay? All of us say, I don't need to be thanked. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of us have been around. We don't. We're here. We love what we do. And a thank you is good enough. But there's things you can do with your volunteers. Something as simple as giving them business cards, recognizing them at a gala or something like that. That keeps them motivated as well, okay? But we always are going to monitor our volunteers. You gather your progress updates. You provide encouragement. And then you use those volunteers to move up the chain, okay? I'll use a sports analogy. You know, you've got your farm team, your minor league teams. These are your day of volunteers. They show up, they do something, you're paying attention. Which one of these guys took charge? Which one of these people looked like they had potential to do other things as a volunteer? So you use this organization now to find your new depth in your volunteer organization, and you continue to develop your committees as you go through, okay? What now? As Rick and I were talking and working for the last 6 months with the volunteer task force, the term that came up, and I thought it was really great, what you've seen with the Live Yes Arthritis Network is not a revolution in how we're doing business. It's an evolution, okay? And I'll let Rick and Ann argue whether it's wheels or gas or whatever. I don't know. I'll let that one go as we saw that. But this is the organization that they're looking for. Now, a point I want to bring up on this organization, all of you now have seen this chart numerous times in presentations and paperwork that's been handed out for the last couple days. This is not carved in stone. This is a representational presentation of what a sample committee might look like. Okay? So yes, we've got the board chair, and these are probably the basics that you'll have in any committee structure at a leadership board level. But you can have other things. You're not restricted to this. You know, you can expand out and have more of what you need. The important thing to understand in here is the new positions that are being added in to support the Live Yes Network and the importance of getting the volunteers to fill in all those positions that you have. Because I do not want to be the chair of the Jingle Bell Run, the walk, and the gala. Okay? You don't have time. You want to have 3 chairs. You want to have 3 committees, or how many other events you have going on. You want to have this stable that we're trying to build now of subject matter experts to do all the things that aren't involved with the fundraising necessarily, but are involved with the patient care and the conversations that are necessary to make people feel like they're okay again, that it's okay to be a part of this organization. So you have to build those volunteers, make it come together nicely. Again, this is a representation of that, gives you an idea of where we're supposed to be going and what we're trying to do. This is a model. These are the primary new roles that are being described here, and you've heard them discussed numerous times. And all you got to do is talk about it. You find out people are involved. I found out one of the twins is interested in being a network facilitator. We talked about it beforehand. She's all ready to go, okay? And she's already picked her assistant. Strangely enough, it's her sister. But that's okay. Did you really think they were going to be separated? I don't think so. But you can do this. How many of you have looked at this job description that you've probably seen for the first time at this conference and said, wow, I've been doing that for the last 5 years? Show of hands. Moms, how many people have talked to a mom on, whether it's on the phone or whether it's on social media or email? I know my wife does it all the time. That's what you're doing here. We're putting a definitive position together to do this and a structure to make it work so we can use that to continue to build the foundation. Rick has said many times, don't get wrapped around the axle on the word expert. That's not a certification or a diploma. As far as I'm concerned, my wife could sit and talk with any pharmacist for hours and they'd know what was going on. I had no idea what she's talking about, and she'll verify that right up front. But she can do that. She, in my mind, is an expert. And I know a lot of people go to her for that kind of information. That's what we're looking for. That stable of people that are willing to talk to people, make this work, make it happen. We have got to become a volunteer-run organization, a term some of you heard me use before. We're your volunteers. We're your unpaid staff. We can make this organization go forward, continue to grow, continue this evolution that's going to make everything better for the people out there with arthritis. And we can do that as volunteers, okay? Volunteers power the Arthritis Foundation. But the only way we can do that is by getting more volunteers, helping the staff out, making all this work. I hope everybody is successful. I make myself available to anybody that needs any help. That's how you can get in touch with me. Smith Family Zoo is extremely accurate. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I'll stick around afterwards if anybody has any questions. Is that all right?
Wow. Hope you can hear Steve's passion in volunteering and his years of experience. And so if you have an opportunity to visit with Steve further to ask questions of him or Liz, certainly I know they'll be around and happy to take your questions. So we have a couple extra minutes for you to be able to grab an extra cup of coffee on your way to your market breakout session. So I'm just going to ask everyone to take your name badge, flip it around, and look on the back, and you will see your particular session. We have you grouped by market size. Now, yesterday, you may remember as I was giving my introduction, I was talking to you about what we mean when we say, are we ready for the launch of the Live Yes Network? And I was referring to market breakout sessions today, where we would have a chance to take the readiness assessment and begin with your local team, with your colleagues and your volunteers and your staff partners from your community to be able to link up with other volunteers and other communities of like size and to be able to talk through how everyone's doing and to share ideas and best practices and put pen to paper on some initial action steps that you can take when you go back home. So we're now going to do that. I'm going to dismiss you. We have about 15 to 20 minutes for you to be there at the bottom of the hour. I am going to say, if you're in the small/medium market category, the Waterview room, if you haven't found it, you might need some breadcrumbs, so I'll just tell you. So you're going to go downstairs, and everyone remembers, I think most everyone remembers where the lounge is from last night, right? You're going to walk through the lounge, and it's literally at the far end of the building. So down the escalators, through the lounge, follow the hallway to the end, and you'll find it, okay? And we will see you back in here for our special guests, Jeff Shuck and Jennifer Mulholland from Plenty. So enjoy your breakout sessions.